It is with great pleasure that I talk about sand play today, which has been a modality at our center probably since 2008. And I've had multiple years and still are in mentoring because of the sand play process. It's really a process of discovery through child's play where they are in the moment that they're in. It's what we would call a projective technique, that what the child plays in front of them is a projection of how they may be experiencing the world inside of them. It's been an incredible journey watching children go through sand play. Before we really do begin, though, I do want to pay homage to Betty Jackson, who has been my mentor over many years, who also does courses on the Maude Academy website that you can access there. If you're watching this, then you can also ask for a 15% discount on one of her courses if you should want to watch them. She has been instrumental. She's an ISST training leader. She has been involved in this work for how many years? Instrumental in my understanding of this method and how to look at child development from an emotional projective experience, a sense of self, a sense of well-being experience. So I really would like to honor her. What is it? It's a very unique psychotherapeutic modality. It has it has sand trays. There's water that you can add to the tray. You can make the sand more moist if you need to. There are figurines involved. There are two people involved, me and the client. Sometimes me, the client, and a family member, a caregiver, depending on what the needs are at the moment in time. But it doesn't involve the child to need to talk. Actually, it's a child and an adult therapy. Many adults do sand play and make the most beautiful pictures in sand. It affords the client the right to not to have to talk, especially when there's been trauma or past experiences they don't want to revisit. The revisiting does happen, but in a very subconscious way. It's played out in the sand, and you can see the trajectory as it follows through the sand pictures that's built from one week to the next. But it's really a creative expression of the inside world. It's a right brain experience that's emotive, and it all happens within a square container of a sand tray. That's what they call the world. And some people say, well, isn't that a little bit funky? Maybe. But what I've seen is its healing power. Its power to afford the client, the adult, the child, a way of expressing, a way of feeling that doesn't really need verbal expression. And because of nonverbal being so connected to the right brain, it's very real. It's very hard not to play out what you're interested in. If I ask you to go to a movie tonight and I say to you, you want to watch a comedy, a spy movie, a drama, what would you like to watch? Well, today you may feel like a spy movie, or tomorrow you may feel like a comedy or something romantic. How we feel like in the moment in time is the choices we make. And this is what also happens in sand play. And so what you see in front of you now is a picture of an 8-year-old who was going through a very rough, tumultuous time, having a very hard time understanding the good and the bad inside of himself, understanding that he's not only a bad boy, even though if he's doing bad behavior, that there's some goodness in him, that there's a balance inside of him, understanding that even when I do bad behavior, I'm still a good boy. And he was playing that out in the sand, rough places underneath the sand. You can feel the chaos that he was experiencing inside of his own body. So it harnesses the place of visualization, of imagination in play, which is also very powerful for many other considerations like academics, like comprehension, like forming a picture of what I'm reading as I'm going through a book that I'm decoding to read. making sure that I have written expression and an idea about things that I want to write. So many clients have put pictures in the sand and then they've gone to school and wrote a story about what they did in the sand. The connection, the connectivity to that is just so just lovely to watch and observe. And it also takes the child from a concrete place of playing out what they know to a place of anything can happen. It's fantasy. And because of that, there's a freedom. There's a freedom of expression. Nobody to judge, nobody to say, I expect this performance of you. It simply is just be. And the moment those hands touch the sand, it's a tactile experience that connects straight to the limbic center of the brain. Similar to what we felt when we were cooed and hugged by our mommies when we were babies. That touch that can be so emotional, right? So if we don't have imagination, if we don't develop fantasy, it's very hard for us to build empathy, to build the way that I can understand myself and I can understand somebody else's thoughts and feelings, and I can have some negotiation between both areas of exploration. Now, in the sand play, we use the sand as an earth element, is what they're talking about. And really, this is, I want you to think about when you were young and you were playing on the beach and doing sand castles and what those feelings were when you had that, and how you still connect to those feelings, even just thinking of that past memory. And maybe there's something to be said for digging and tunneling and shaping and making something stand, and then the water comes in and it upsets half of the castle, and then you start back up again, right? Maybe a bit further away from the water's edge. But all of that digging, all of that under the sand and with the hands under, it's all about process. It's all about process. And sometimes that's all they do. Sometimes they don't put any figures in the sand. They just simply tunnel and mold, and we know that they are very, very busy with an intricate process of self-exploration when they are doing that. We always would like to know what kids are thinking, right? Or what adults are thinking, but we don't. And you don't have to when you're doing sand play. We don't have to completely know what the child is thinking. We're simply witnessing and creating a space where the child can feel contained to expand their world and to really just explore what they have to offer to the sand, to the tray, to this place. They want us to witness. And in that witnessing, we are also seeing the process of healing coming to them and them really doing the healing themselves. So powerful to watch. The water often is connected with a little bit more anxiety, maybe, maybe not. Sometimes it's about blessings that's strewed upon the figures in the sand. It just depends on the child's individual profile, what they want to do with the symbolism of what they're using. But traditionally, one of the trays is more moistened with water, and then the other tray is more dry. And there's several different theories around it. What we see play out quite a lot is that when the children are going deeper into their past memories of way back experiences, sometimes even first year of life experiences, and we suspect sometimes even in utero experiences, because the brain remembers everything, even though we can't consciously remember that, they usually are tending more to go towards the moist sand. It's something that we quite commonly see, although I can't say it's always. In the dry sand, it's almost more connected to what they're presently going through and presently is mulling over in their subconscious. But as I say, there's many theories out there that you can read about. That seems to be something that works for us. The sand play collection, it doesn't have to break the bank. Springtime, lots of garage sales out there. Can't tell you how many boxes I picked up full of figurines for $5, right? It's your collection, and it's also when I go to different parts of the globe to train, I pick up figurines from those countries. And so over the years, we've developed this beautiful collection, but it's definitely a collection that comes with time. And sometimes I purchase things simply because there's a new Disney movie out and we need those characters because the kids want to play it. There's something that resonates with them. Sometimes the therapist says to me, Maude, this child was looking for tombstones the other day and we didn't have them. Then I will order them. So it just goes by way. Most of us start by, do our kids have toys they don't want to play with anymore? And just start putting them into the trays. And don't think of having the tray overnight. The kids work with what's available. They really do. So there's common categories that you can think about in the figurines that we use in Sandplay. Everyday people, fighting figures, superpower figures, oh, Hulk and Superman, Spider-Man. Animals, trees, plants, natural things like shells, pebbles, sticks and stones, houses, structures, cars, trucks. Think about all of those miniatures that you would put into your dollhouse when you were little, right? Having furniture, having kids play out scenes in the home. These are all very, very common um, figures that we could gather over time. So a lot of different things, mirrors, even little mirror from your wallet that you may want to discard. So what I want you to think about is that Sandplay is an additional medium to provide an emotional connection for the child in the present moment that they are developing. Every experience is buried in our memories based on our emotions at the time that's associated with it and the sensory experiences at the time. And for me as an occupational therapist working in sensory integration, I've realized about, can I say, 10 years into my practice, something was missing. That only looking from a sensory integration lens was not going to cut it. I needed to figure out what is the child's emotional adaptation to the new nervous system and sensory processing that we were providing them through therapy. And the fact that they were adapting through their sensory system didn't always naturally go over into the emotional system. And I would show the families, look at the pre and post testing. Beautiful changes when we do the post testing for the processing. It's definitely taken place, and the parent loves on me and says, Maud, I love the fact that the child, my child's done so well, but the behavior is still the same at home. Didn't make any sense until I realized that the sensory is attached to the emotional, and it's not always an equal as. That sometimes the emotional system has to accept the new, has to say, to stop being afraid that the old is going to come back. So Sandplay helps us to know what the child is revisiting. Sometimes we don't know what on earth they are trying to depict. And that's also okay, as long as it's their process. And as long as we're providing them the opportunity to say, your emotions matter, your feelings matter. And we know that if your emotional maturity can come about, you can also be social. That if your emotional maturity can be available, you can also regulate. So working with kids have become a place of sensory tenet, emotional tenet, working them together far more integrative in a much shorter period of time. And Sandplay is one of the mediums that I love to use for that. Thank you for joining me today.